I'm curious, let's imagine a single mother or parents with 7 children, each with their own kind of experiences of trauma. How could I put that on paper and actually map it so that I can work through or with the family without kind of getting lost in my process?
Okay, I've got it.
Thanks.
How did you know to ask a question that meant I could use a flip chart? That's great. It's all fine and good having somebody come along and talk about these concepts and why this is also important, but how can you apply it? Okay. The concept of emotional shrapnel. One of the things that works about it is it's so graphic that it works really well. So, imagine this is a gingerbread person, yeah? And you are allowed to laugh. Marks out of 10. I'm doing this in front of 1,750 people, so if I can do it in front of you, then you're going to be able to do this with kids. To explain to a child that the concept of emotional shrapnel would be really useful. So if there's a child who has experienced physical abuse, you can say, do you know, it's like red pieces of glass. And you know what? They just kind of get stored in the body. And having them stored in the body means that sometimes makes you angry. And when you see violence or you get connected to something, it's like they go and are lit up inside of you. And that's why you, Tim, will suddenly go, pow. This is why these kids seem to go from being calm, except they're not really, because they're never completely calm, they're always hypervigilant, to very angry in a microsecond. If we can help Tim understand why he's like that, then that's going to make a massive difference. One of the ways, okay, so we can also explain to him that there is the green neglect. So neglect, and he had that pain in his tummy, which is why we know that when Tim gets hungry, God, you can't do a thing with him. So when Tim is hungry, what do? We feed him. This is the kid that you do not make wait in line for school lunches. You don't make him do second sitting. It's not fair, because he is a kid who's been neglected and has starved in the past. So all his triggers will be started because he knows that actually food runs out. So you don't do that. You always make sure that a kid like that is kept well fed and not hungry because of that trigger. Going back to the red shards of glass, and there will be some other shrapnel as well. How does a child learn to control themselves? Things like anything that will get them connected to their body and aware of their body, which often they're shut off from because of how awful it makes them feel. If they are doing some kind of sport, martial arts, something that actually helps them learn to control, particularly control of breath, because in terms of self-regulation, for any of us, the better that we breathe, the more calm we are. If we can remain with stomach breathing, We're connecting into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our calming. Whereas if we go up high and start breathing up high, you know that's the time you're going to go into you're in a stress response, and you're going to and things are going to escalate. So those are a couple of practical thoughts for what you can do. Does that answer your question sufficiently? Thank you.
Have to wave your hand. You have to wave your hand wildly for us to be able to see. So if someone's got their hand up.
Okay. Oh, you're not talking to me here, Lisa, but I'm still waving.
No, but feel free.
Waving, not drowning.
I want to ask you about how do I work with carers who are excellent carers, but don't really understand the impact of trauma response.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I caught all of this. Let me just clarify. You're asking, how do you work with carers who
Yes.
are aggravating the response in children?
Whose response to trauma behaviour, it doesn't soothe the behaviour, it actually escalates it.
Okay. You educate them. If they, and I'm going to assume for this, it's a foster parent. If you have foster parents who assume that they can be page and do normal parenting, that's not going to work, because you have a different child in front of you. So foster parents need to be trained to understand the impact of neglect and maltreatment in infancy, and understand what is going on inside the child. So the first thing that they have to do is learn to regulate themselves. And I'm going to quote Bruce Perry here. And he says, when you have a child doing whatever in front of you, the first thing that you have to do is regulate. Now, I split that into the first thing you do is regulate yourself. You have to remain calm throughout. And if that means that you have to physically step back, which is always a good thing, little bit of distance, you can maintain contact, but bit of physical distance, regulate yourself. You then help the child regulate, and that might be, it's okay, you're safe. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because as a foster parent, you are recognizing you don't have a 14, 15-year-old in front of you. You have an infant, a terrified infant in a 6-foot body. And you have to connect to that infant. So you remain calm. It's okay. It's okay, you're safe. Yeah, that's right. And if you can get the child to calm, regulate, relate, and then you can do the reasoning. You don't start off with, don't you speak to me like that, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. That comes an hour or however long later when both of you are calm. That's when you can do that relating. Is that an acceptable answer?
Yes. Oh, yes, thank you very much.
I think there's time for one more question.
Okay, and I'm gonna add a shameless promote at this point. I have some online training, and you will be able to find much more detailed answers to some of these questions in the online training. That's the shameless plug over on Fab Parents.
What do you recommend as a respectful consequence for bad behaviour when you're calm, when you're in the calm state?
A respectful consequence.
Behaviour, because we've come up with all different consequences for bad behaviour, as in the naughty corner. Now that's not reasonable anymore. And yeah, I'm just wondering ideas about what might be.
Okay, right. The naughty corner, no. When a child is out of control or whatever else, what they need is time in, not time out. You have to put yourself in the head of the child. What is going on? They have to understand. You have to reconnect with them and get that connection, because it is through relationships that we change kids. Something that you might do in that instance, you might think, well, how old is this child? Now, you might have an 8-year-old in front of you. Actually, were they functioning as a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old? What would you do with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old? Well, would you expect a 2 or 3-year-old to be able to put all their toys away on their own? No, you wouldn't. So you would help them do it. So a consequence might be, we will do this together, because you are then teaching them how to do it. And this concept of bad behaviour, you have to look beyond the behaviour. The behaviour of a child is its vocabulary. It's giving you a message. Now, it can't do it with the thinking brain and language. The behaviour is the language, the vocabulary. You have to step back and think, okay, Coming back to the consequences, it needs to be an appropriate consequence, in my opinion, for what's happened. And also bear in mind that for a child, they may only have the now, not the past, and not the future. And sometimes helping them see that is part of the process. And it's slightly difficult to answer that without it being too specific. But I think my final comment would be, don't look at the presenting behaviour, the symptom. What is the underlying cause? What's going on inside the child? What is the root cause of that behaviour? And the root cause is going to be back there. It's going to be something historic that needs resolution.
Helen, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Can we please thank Helen again? That was amazing. Thank you.